Welcome to the Traveller 2025 Mayday event. I'm your host, Frank Succardi of CyborgPrime Games. I have with me today some very interesting people who are going to tell us about their very interesting project. I have with me today Matthew Kerwin, Jim Kundert, Rob Eaglestone, and Tom Jones-Law, all co-writers of the recent book Pirates, the classic Traveller expansion recently put out by these guys via Mongoose. So welcome, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for supporting Mayday. So I wanted to welcome you and just give you guys a chance to go around and tell the listeners a little bit about yourself. Let's start with Matthew.
Okay.
Give us a little background about who you are and how you came into this project.
Well, I get a pure Solomani, as most of us are. My name is Matthew Kerwin. I started writing Traveller fiction several years ago and put out a novel, The Wagner Incident, and then several short stories also along those lines. And I've been working with different people at different times, and met up with Rob Eaglestone while I was working on the X-Boat series. Helped him a little with that, and then the four of us have since been working on various different projects, the most recent of which was Pirates.
All right, cool. Jim, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and how you came into this project?
I've been I discovered Traveller about the same time as the original JTAS issue 3, if I recall correctly. And my introduction was via the 77 edition of Classic. And I've been following Traveller through its editions ever since, sometimes participating in a fan capacity. I was a member of the History of the Imperium Working Group, did some Zhodani work, and that eventually led me into the writing circle that was involved with first the old T20 writing circle, and then into the group that would eventually end up writing things and checking things for Mark for Mongoose products, and that's brought me into this writing circle, and here we are.
All right, cool. And Rob, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up in this group.
Yeah, Rob Eaglestone. So I got into Traveller in the 90s. I was a late bloomer, but that's okay. I loved it as soon as I saw it. For Mongoose, I wrote the Deneb source book, the original first edition of that. That was 2011. So my connections with Mongoose started early. And then that paired with my relationship with Mark Miller kind of got Matthew's interest when the license transferred over to Traveller, and he contacted us and said, would you like to do something for Classic Traveller? And hook, line, and sinker.
Mm-hmm. Would I?
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, cool. All right, and Tom, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved?
My name is, I'm Tom Jones-Low. I got hooked into Traveller, actually being a playtester for a lot of the GURPS Traveller stuff and the T20, and wrote a couple of the Traveller's aids for T20, and then was sort of drifting along. I ended up working on the Traveller Wiki for a very long time. I still manage that to do that, and so I've got the librarian tag that goes with that. And written a couple of other little things, and found Rob through a bunch of that pieces of that. So we got to writing some, trying to kick around some ideas for some of the T5 stuff. and I put together Beasts and Soffents, which was a T5 book, to do that with as well, and get that out the door, and see if we could keep that going. And so, yeah, it's just been sort of floating along saying, hey, what about this idea? And then sort of working with that, and then, oh, what about this idea? And then sort of seeing how far we got with that. So very nice to do that with. So
it seems like you guys were kind of like floating along there and then kind of all got roped in by T5. Is that what happened, or pretty much?
I think Rob roped us into T5, but yeah, I think that's kind of how it went. I missed the T5 Kickstarter myself. I was not interested in. Well, I wasn't saying I wasn't interested. I kind of lost touch with Traveller for a couple of years there, and what got me back into it was reading Mark's novel, and that got me interested again. And I went looking, and I saw that there was T5 available. Picked it up, started reading it, got involved in the Facebook groups, and I think when Expo was coming out, that was the kind of the first published support for T5, right? Beasts and Sophons is excellent. You guys need to pick that up if you haven't. But I think Expo might have been the first post basic rules thing that actually came out for T5.
Mm-hmm. There was the circus campaign.
Oh right, Cirque. I forgot about that.
Right. And Imperial Line 6 and 7.
Greg Lee's excellent book. Oh yeah, Imperial Line 6 and 7.
So and these guys, I didn't go looking for these guys, right? I mean, they had already fallen into Mark's orbit as advisors for Traveller 5 to begin with. I don't know about you, Matt, but the other guys definitely were, right? And so Mark would bounce ideas off of a dozen or so people, right? And these were some of the guys in that group. So when I wanted to do something for Traveller 5, like Expo or whatever, these guys I'd naturally reach out to. I mean, it's just a given, because we already have that rapport, and Mark knows their names, and that helps. That greases wheels.
Mm-hmm.
I want to also, Jim and Tom have what I would call an encyclopedic knowledge of Traveller lore. Tom, I think, because he's kind of forced to, because he's running the wiki, I think entirely out of his head, through a brain interface. That's a high-tech brain interface. But Jim just seems to know it all, know all the history of Traveller from the get-go. I mean, he seems to have a solid knowledge of things that I think every time we talk, Jim surprises me with another piece of ancient Traveller lore that, there was such book, and I'm like, what book is this? I've never, something I've never heard of, dating back to the 70s and whatever. I believe Jim is the one who brought up that the Keith brothers had already written a Pirates book back in the 82 or something, 81 or 82, something like that.
I don't think it was that early. Well, it might have been, but it came to light as part of the Cargonaut Press Kickstarter before there was Kickstarter.
Oh.
So I don't remember how many of us there were, but we all threw money at Paul Sanders, and 6 months later, a big bundle of books showed up. Sort of the Keith brothers farewell to Traveller, as it were. It's like, here's all the stuff that we had sitting around that no longer really have an avenue for it, and Paul provided that avenue. So I've actually got hard copies of the Cargonaut stuff sitting on my shelf.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Cool. So, let's just talk a little bit about some of your personal history with Traveller. Matthew, you wrote the Wagner incident, which is a story about the droid.
Well, I should mention I was into Traveller before I was into girls, and it was I was probably 12, I think, when I got the Traveller book. So that was something that I had spent years playing in my misspent youth. before writing, and I wrote a number of short stories, starting with The Frozen Watch, just on a whim, just to see if, because I was interested in that, and then passed them around on like Facebook and a few other people here and there, and got the idea to just write a novel. That I'd been kind of toying with some of these ideas in my head for a few years. But Mark, so middle of the night, I emailed Mark Miller, just like you do, who didn't know who I was at all. And I asked him if I could publish the Wagner Incident. And told him I'd written a novel. And what did he do, Rob? I believe he gave it to you to read and said, "Tell me if this is any good."
Is that what he did?
I think it was
Is that why
something.
it took so long to get back to you on that?
I think he gave you one chapter of it and said, "Just let me know if this is any good." And he gave me permission to publish it, which I am forever grateful for. So he wasn't interested at that time in publishing fiction other than his own, which was quite impressive as well. So that's how I got into it. And then when I started, when X-Book came out, I somehow wormed my way into Rob's good graces to help with that at some point. And that's how I got into this particular group to start writing. And that's where we've been going ever since.
Where do you get, you've written this joint book, you've written these short stories, and you've even written the interview with the Hiver skit for one of our previous Maydays. Where do you get these ideas, and what made you decide that what we really need is an interview with the Hiver?
The interview with the Hiver thing was just, I don't know, I was thinking of it once as a couple of years ago, as an idea for a skit I could do at like a Traveller convention or something, but I was like, well, this doesn't really work, because first of all, I'm not gonna put on a Hiver costume. Even if I could get a Hiver costume together, I don't think I would be able to crawl around the ground like that. So I thought, well, maybe this is something that's better suited for the online realm. And so yeah, I don't know how many people know I was involved with that, but I did do. I wrote up the conversation, and then used an electronic voice because our Hivers are going to use an electronic voice because they can't talk. So that's where that went. I don't know. Some people thought it was funny. I don't think so. I think some people probably wondered, what in the world is this?
I liked it. I thought it was creative, great idea, and it was overall well received. So kudos. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. Where do you go for inspiration? Like how do you come up with your ideas? Or
boy, it's really hard to say. I don't know. As to what to write about, I kind of started trying to write short stories about the different careers in Traveller, and I when I got to the Marines one, I just started writing the Wagner Incident, which is very much about a group of Marines, and kind of being put in a bad situation, and so that's where that went. I have been toying with other Traveller fiction for years. The Wagner Incident, to be honest, is probably like the third Traveller novel. I'd written the others are not good enough to see the light of day. Maybe someday I'll rework them into something readable. But it's something I think is a little underexplored. There have been other Traveller novels too. There was the Kundert novel. There was at least there were the three TNE novels too. The Backward Mask, etc. Yeah. But I think it's still underexplored. I think there's a market out there for it, and I think other people would be interested in doing it.
Mm-hmm. It is a question I see fairly frequently. It's like, is there any fiction for this game?
I hope you remember my name whenever that comes up. Whenever someone brings it up on Facebook, I sell like 10 more books, so that's great news.
That's cool. Very cool.
I'll help. Eventually, I'll just quit my day job, and that'll be my thing.
Yeah, that'd be great. All right. How about you, Jim? Why don't you tell us a little bit more about your past as a Traveller veteran writer. You
Oh,
have
heavens.
interest in Zhodani and
That's kind of what got started. I was participating in the discussions on the old pre-web bulletin board system Genie, which is where Traveller's online presence was at the time. And the principals of the History of the Imperium Working Group approached me and said, "You want to be a member?" "No, really, you want to be a member?" And that that led to development of about a sector and a half of Zhodani space, which would eventually, that directly led to coming into this group, because Don McKinney, who wrote the Zhodani book for Mongoose, knew that I had done a lot of this work previously, and so he sort of dragged me in to that project, and I've been in the circle ever since. The other project that I had done as part of that led to here fairly recently, without much more involvement other than my original document, but Jeff Kazmierski, I believe that's how he pronounces it, has produced and is ongoing in producing an extensive Zhodani dictionary, glossary, grammar, the whole business. And the foundational document for that was my attempts to figure out how to name Zhodani worlds and what they might mean. Back 35 years ago, because Don pulled that document into the Zhodani book, and that's why it's not as obscure as it would have otherwise have been. And so, I don't really have any involvement with Jeff's work, but I am, sort of a godfather, if you will. But the involvement on Genie led to a little bit of involvement in the T&E play tests, and an article in the original run of Imperial Lines that didn't see print because they switched from Mega Traveller to T&E about that time. And then, from there, some very, very peripheral involvement in T4, to the point where I've got a credit in the T4 book that I shouldn't have, because if you know anything about the T4 efforts, they were a little rushed. And from there to T20 and so on. I wasn't very much involved in GURPS Traveller, but I, and then because of my involvement with Don, and then I got sort of pulled into Rob's Deneb effort and helped with a little bit with that, and that has led to this writing group being always having something to talk about pretty much ever since.
Are you involved or have any connection with Traveller Map as well?
I know Joshua somewhat. We're both here in California, so I've met him. I've run Traveller for him, though only once. And I greatly respect the work that goes or has gone into Traveller Map. A lot of my work as a industrious fan has ended up on Traveller Map. I did a lot of the of Kukri Space, for example.
Because somebody asked to.
That's an ongoing project. So I wouldn't call that finished by any stretch, but it's an ongoing project.
All right, cool. All right, Rob, let's talk a little bit about your background with Traveller. You have some JTAS credits and GURPS?
Yeah, I did a couple of small articles in GURPS. I redid Rescue and Rui in GURPSese. And I've got, I wrote a little process for converting your name, my name, anybody's name into something that looks Villani, right? Just this little machine that just do some substitution. It's a substitution cipher, right? And you get out something that doesn't look like your name, doesn't look like anything at all. So that made it into GURPS. It's JTAS articles as well.
Cool.
That was 2-bit stuff though. That was like, me just kind of just doing a couple of things, right? The Deneb book was the big boy. That was a daunting task, and that took a lot of effort.
How many pages is that?
It's not as many as they wanted, I think, but it felt like a lot of pages. I don't know. Wait, and I would ask Jim, how long is the Deneb book? Do you remember?
It was fairly standard sector book for first edition Mongoose, but I don't have a page count off the top of my head.
100 pages, something along that.
Was that for first or second edition? I thought it was for second.
That's a lot of.
That was
first
first
material. Uh-huh.
They have since redone Deneb for second edition, based strongly on Rob's first edition book.
Mm-hmm.
But no, Rob's book was for first.
Yeah, was there. Yep. And after that, it was I was kind of involved in T5's development, and I tried to do some proofreading and advice or whatever, but Mark is a machine, and I'm not. So that was a fun ride. But at the end, I came away from it thinking, there's a lot of material in here that it's a 750-page book, but there's a lot of material that hadn't been written. And largely that is, that you can pack so much information densely into one page, but don't expect anyone to understand it. And so there's a need for, here's how you create a character, here's how you do it. Even from people with Traveller experience, you go to T5 and it is dense text. And if you don't know where all the parts are, even I lose things in there, right? So that's where the idea for Expo came from. That I've got lots of ideas for little things for Traveller. Let's T5 them, and let's make a mag that has something in each issue that someone can take something and run with. You don't even necessarily need to be into T5 to find it useful, but that's the basis that I run from. And that's what Imperial Line 6 and 7 started to do as well, to break down. They started on the character generation, trying to break that down into a step-by-step procedure that you could read and understand. So that's kind of the way I've been looking at things since then. So, yeah.
Awesome. What inspired you to write the Deneb book?
Wow. So I knew there was a need to bring Deneb into the 2000s, right? Because it's one of your nearest neighbors for the Spinward Marches. It's an Imperial sector. It's right next door. I mean, you're just going to step over the edge, and what kind of information do you have? You have data that was compiled in the 80s, Jim, if I remember correctly, maybe early 90s. But was it coherent? Was it all together? And was it written for 1105, or was it written for Mega Traveler or Virus? So there was a need to fill in the gap. And I think this is the time, this was around those years when Traveller Map was kind of coming into its own, and we were trying to figure out, well, we've got Sunbane data and Genie data and all of this UWP stuff, and it needs to be. See, we forget now that 20 years ago, all those that sector data was not consistent, and there was no standardized set, and some of the data was very plainly wrong, and some of it was very badly generated. Nobody really had the authority to do anything about that. I mean, Mark was the guy who could fix it, and he's not going to sit there fixing the UWPs all day. He's got some better things to do with his time here. So that's when Jim Fetters and I sat down and said, well, let's just start from first principles. Let's take Atlas of the Imperium and comb over all of Imperial space and make fixes based on Atlas. And that was the starting point. When Traveller Map was online, then the data could really kind of solidify. So the Deneb sector book kind of came out of that effort, thinking, what do we need to do? What do we need to zero in on next?
All right, cool. All right, and Tom, tell us about your history with Traveller and writing Traveller content.
Sure. Yeah, it was sort of one of those really interesting things. I managed to get on the internet not quite as soon as Jim did, but I definitely remember using the original Sunbane FTP site and being on the TML very early on to talk to people about stuff and write back and forth, largely lurking on that whole thing. And then picked up with the GURPS playtests and got my name in a bunch of the credits for that book, and worked on a bunch of the GURPS books I have name credits in because I was helping with their playtests, and wrote a couple of small articles in there and basically hung out on their forums as well while they were still doing that whole process. And then managed to stumble across Citizens of the Imperium, which was the T20 boards just as they were starting their playtest work, and dug into that one as well. That was a lot of fun to do that. Ended up writing 3 of the Traveller's Aids, the supplements to T20. A bunch of the vehicle books. I was very much a gearhead at that point, and liked doing vehicle designs and played with the vehicle design system. As part of the GURPS, not necessarily Traveller stuff, I ended up helping build a GURPS vehicles program to build, so you could use a computer to build GURPS vehicles with a whole bunch of stuff. And so that's still out there and running on things. And it makes the process of building GURPS vehicles that much easier to do. And sort of was floating along. I missed the T20 playtest, the T5 playtest, and a bunch of the Mongoose first edition stuff was sort of went whoosh by me as I was digging through my own stuff. I picked up the Traveller Wiki early on when somebody else had started that, and I was working on it for a while. And then hooked up with Don McKinney out of that because he was also doing stuff with one of his jobs was to make sure that anybody posting Traveller material without getting Mark's approval would not stay up for very long. And he was very good at that, and so I ended up talking to him a couple of times about stuff that we were posting back and forth. And then once T5 had come out, I was reading through that and said, like Rob, I was like, this could be organized better and do some things, and came up with some big ideas about what I was doing with that. And actually ended up writing a book, Beasts and Soffents, which is a book for T5, which basically pulls the animal creation and the creature creation and the Soffents creation and sort of organizes it as a one big flow, so you can create a creature and then have it be a Soffent and then have the cultures and the governments and the law levels and a whole bunch of other pieces with that. Sort of a lot of details that you can put into something, a world, a creature, whatever you want to do with it. And that was sort of fun. And from that, I knew, Rob and Jim from all the other pieces that we were doing, and sort of got dragged along into doing more of these things. So
That's cool. It's cool that there's such intertwined community. There's influence from Jeff Kazmierski. There's influence from Josh Bell. There's connections to all these different people. Yeah, it's an interesting interwoven community. So let's talk about current business, which would be the latest Mongoose the of Book 9 Pirates expansion. Let's talk a little bit about the origins of that, and why don't you give us a little idea of the overview of the production process there, Matt?
Well, it actually started with Rob, because did Matt reach out to you about doing a new classic expansion, or was that you reaching to him?
No, I can't. Yeah, I can't remember if we decided to ask him first or if he asked us.
Okay, you tell the story then, Rob. Tell us about the origins of Pirates and how it came to fall into your lap.
So the transfer to Traveller of the Traveller license went to Mongoose last year, and
Yeah.
Right, for folks who don't know, the IP, the Traveller, the entire IP, not just the license, has been transferred over to Mongoose. So they now own all the Traveller licensing products, plus licenses for that people are licensing from Traveller. So yes, go on. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Thank you. Yeah, you're right. The IP went over, and at some point, and Matthew, I'm pretty sure it was Mongoose that reached out and said, "You interested in doing something for Classic?" And this was September, I think, when he reached out, and apparently, it didn't take us very long to get excited about the idea, because I think he came out of the blue with that question, and then my first reaction is to wait till Thursday night and then tell it to Matthew and Jim and Tom and see what they think about it. And it was just this it was an incredible amount of energy that came out of that just one suggestion. So in short order,
it took us 30 to 45 seconds to say yes.
Yeah, well, it took us a while. We had to think about it for about 30 seconds. You're right. But we had at least half a dozen potential titles that we offered to him. We prioritized. We said, this is what we think will work, and then he picked Pirates.
Awesome.
And then a big piece of it was we really didn't know if he was going to write like a Mongoose book, right? Like a folio-sized, full-color book, just saying this is for Classic, or if he was going to try to imitate the style of the GDW Classic LEVs. And we kind of said you should imitate this, and he had the exact same idea. So he really said he wanted to look like it was a GDW production that just fell off their truck and didn't get produced at the last minute. And so we kind of went with that right away. That was kind of what we wanted. We all kind of, I think, wanted to do with it is rather than have it be. And there's nothing wrong with the way Mongoose puts out their material. It's very slick. Mm-hmm. We wanted that style because I think it's been my dream since, again, before I was interested in girls to write a Traveller book. And the many things I've done for my own games and for my own, a lot of that was just the opportunity never seemed like it was going to present itself to write a classic Traveller book, I should mention, until this chain of events.
Mm-hmm. So let's kind of go around the group here, and I want to find out from each of you what was the most important thing you wanted to see in the Pirates book. Let's start with Jim.
Well, obviously the classic Traveller books have a very specific format to them. And by format, I mean, the overall idea is that each of them covers, it takes one of the basic careers, books 4, 5, 6, and 7, and takes one of the basic careers and expands it out into a year-by-year process. And then once that part's done, the rest of the book is written to address related topics. For High Guard, that's shipbuilding and ship combat. For Mercenary, that was mercenary tickets and some more fun hardware. Merchant Prince was a new trade system. Scouts was detailed generation of planetary systems. So one of our early conundrums was, well, what do you put in a book about pirates? And so that was being able to fill a book with stuff about pirates became our initial challenge, and the most important thing, to sort of fill out that page count and not retread prior works, because we knew there were plenty of those, but to work with them and be a part of the corpus of knowledge about pirates instead of trying to rewrite it all, because we only got 60 pages. And so, but one of my early thoughts, and sort of the thing that sort of shaped a lot of what we ended up doing, was, since this was supposed to be a classic book, I felt we needed to write it in the same voice as Classic Traveller. And I ended up, contributing a little bit of that directly via the subsector descriptions being maddeningly vague, like a lot of Classic Traveller was. But Matthew and Rob and Tom were handling a lot more of the actual text, and so that voice, very much fell across all of us. But I felt that was stylistically a very important thing to include.
Mm-hmm. All right, good answer. All right, Tom, what about you? What was the thing that you thought was most important, and that you thought you could bring to this project, or that you would like to see in the Pirates book?
I since I was on the Traveller mailing list for many years, I'm an old hand at some of the flame wars that came out of that about whether pirates could exist in the Traveller universe or not. And so trying to explain the process of where that fits into the Traveller universe without sort of getting into all the details of economics and some of the detail, the fights they had over that was really kind of important to sort of say, okay, if you can manage to time this right, and you do your homework and you time this right, you can manage to make this work for you. But it's not I show up and steal some stuff. There's a real job behind it, and trying to get that across to people to say, yeah, it's not either impossible nor easy as you might think it is, but if you go through the process and there's a real adventure to it, to doing that, and you can sort of turn that into an adventure every time. Was sort of a good thing that I really wanted to get across there, to say it's both grounded in reality and makes for a good adventure.
Yeah, Tom wrote a lot of the economics related and details of how the economics work that I think we all found kind of helpful, because none of us were real sure about that.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. Good points, Tom. All right. What about you, Rob? What was the important thing that you wanted to see in the that you thought was important to bring to the Pirates book?
So, not ever having been a space pirate myself, I really needed a guide. I needed something that would give me instructions on how to get my crew and how to get the jobs done and who I'm going to get these jobs. So, but really, in a nutshell, though, my needs were very similar to Tom's. That I wanted to look at pirates as something that I could get an adventure out of instead of a checklist of mechanics, right? As to here's your steps for being a successful pirate. No, instead it's a whole bunch of risks that you're making, and you're gambling on a whole lot of psychological elements as well as mechanical elements, and bad timing, and everything either comes together or it falls apart, and that makes a good adventure. That's what I was looking for.
All right, cool. And what about you, Matthew?
Well, I concentrated first on the character generation. I've been thinking about that for a number of years. I'd already kind of written up some thoughts on expanded character generation for pirates, because if you don't have a lot of classic players, each of the main careers in Classic Traveller starts with a simple generation system for them, and then the books 4, 5, 6, 7 all released expanded character generation. So there was a supplement, the number of which is losing right now, Citizens of the Imperium, that brings in another stack of how many is it? 18 additional careers. I think it's 18 additional careers, one of which is pirates. So this is taking now character career type, past career type, which is from a supplement book rather than from one of the main books, right? And that really hadn't been done. Like, as far as I know, that they hadn't really done that before. So I wanted to make that seem like we were expanding on the pirate generation from the original book, so you could make very basic pirates from the Citizens of the Imperium book. But if you want to make a better pirate, you look at the enhanced character generation. It hadn't been done even by Mega Travelers, so there wasn't like a system to fall back on. I kind of had to put that one together, but I also wanted to make it something that part of the fun of the old Traveller is character generation, right? And true with Mongoose as well. So running characters through this process, through an iterative process, to make something that's not quite random, but a little bit random, definitely, is kind of fun. And running some. So I made maybe 5 or 6 test characters with it, which was not a lot. They weren't great, but made tweaks where I could see places to put tweaks in it. So that part was a lot of fun. And then I think a big piece of it was I was writing a good portion of the text, and I was trying to match that voice Jim was talking about. I went through books 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, read them again. I've read them each 10 times, but read them again. And tried to piece together what it was about the voice, the peculiarities of it, the way they there's a lot of passive voice, there's a lot of words that are used repeatedly, right? Individual and character, and just the way they kind of came together to make to give that voice of an omniscient narrator who's telling you about something that's part of a game, but they're not really telling you about it like it's part of the game. It's very difficult to explain that voice if you're not familiar with it, but it's trying to match it was a lot of fun, really, because I'd write something up, and I have all kinds of grammar checkers and everything on my computer. It would tell me, well, don't write that, it's in the passive voice, and you've misused this word 3 times, and I had to ignore all that, just keep going.
Back in my day, we didn't have spell check, and we liked it.
We didn't have spell check.
We misspelled uphill both ways.
It's quite clear there was not a lot of spell check going on back in the day of GDW either. So they by and large, those books are fine, but they have that look of age where it's like if a word got misspelled, every printing of that book would have that word misspelled. They weren't going to go play that thing out again, even if they knew there was a problem. And then just the idea of what do we want to put in because each of those, as Jim was saying, each of those books has the character generation, then it has stuff, right, that relates to those characters and that character archetype. And we quickly decided that we wanted a couple of ships in the book because none of the other books have ships. So, books 4 through 7 don't have. I guess 5 has high guard ships, right? But none of them have deck plans or anything like that. And that's kind of a supplement thing. But we thought, well, if we're gonna do pirates, let's do a couple of pirate ships. The pirate designs in Classic are not really well dealt with. There's a couple of Corsair, there's a Corsair and there's a Varga Corsair. But rather than just detail ships that have already been detailed in other books, we made a couple of new ships and threw those in there. Like, hey, here's 2 ships for different purposes than the Corsair and the Varga Corsair. And it let us clarify some things. It let us add some. It was very difficult not to fix things that we thought were probably not the best from the original Traveller, right? There's a temptation to just let's fix this. We didn't do that, but we did add some stuff. We added some equipment that we thought was necessary. We added, I think it was Rob's idea, I think, to add some computer software, which, there's computer software in book 2, and it's like kind of a major part of the way the classic Traveller space combat system works. But nobody's ever written. It's just that's the way it is, and nobody ever wrote any more of them. And Rob, knocked out 10 more computer programs. I think he actually knocked out like 20, and we had to cut it down. We had to cut it down to 10. Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
For other things that you can make your computer do in Traveller. I mean, your computer's the size of your house. You might as well do something good with it, right? And Classic, that's about accurate too. They're usually 40 to 50 tons. So that part was kind of fun too. So I think a lot of it, it was great to have the opportunity to write it, but it was great to kind of like shape the way the game might have looked had they continued on that line, right? Had they not done Mega Traveller, had they continued just knocking out Classic books, it was fun to speculate on what that would have been.
So what should user or readers expect to find in there? They're going to find some deck plans for some new ships. They're going to find some software and computer rules. They're going to find character generation rules. What other things are they going to find in that book?
We got some equipment in there, don't we?
We got some equipment, some. Do
you have pirate lore?
We don't have. I wouldn't say we have lore. We have a subsector that has some.
Yeah.
A lot of pirate activity going on in it. So, again, this is something that you'd find. There was a subsector in the Traveller book, and there was a subsector in various supplements. But in Classic, they didn't really put subsectors in books. But we thought, well, this illustrates the point we're making in the book: is that here's a subsector that has pirates in it. Here's what. Here's the kind of places where pirates hang out. And we picked a subsector in Corridor for this, and we did that largely because there's not a lot written about Corridor. There's no official info on it until Mega Traveller, and even that is very much like, here's a list of the UWPs for the worlds in this sector, and that's all you get, right? That's all. There's not anything written about the deeper situation going on in the sector and what's going. And this gives us. And Jim was, I think, the one to recognize. Jim or Tom, I don't know which one of you was, to recognize that this was an opportunity to reach out and write some classic lore about what was going on in Corridor, because nobody, if you ask anybody, they don't know, because there was nothing at the time. It was just a name on a map.
I think one of the things that we ended up putting in there was some more information about the Varga Corsairs. There's a couple pages talking about Corsairs in there and how they fit into the whole thing. And if you're talking about pirates in Traveller, that's sort of the classic thing that everyone starts bringing up. And so we decided to put some more pieces of that in there to say, hey, and part of the reason we picked Corridor for that was because that was an obvious, easy place to put, Varg Corsairs, and here's where they would be largely active, and we could talk about that, how to make that happen. There's a big piece of if you're going to be a pirate, here's how to do the piratey thing. There's a big chunk of text there about what you're looking for, how you set this up. When you grab a ship, you've got a very short amount of time to actually get everything out of it, and decide what you're going to do with the ship and its cargo and the people on board, and what you can do with that, and sort of say, okay, I can leave them here or I can take them with us. What do we do and what do we get out of that? And so you're making decisions about that, knowing that there's a patrol ship showing up, coming in at high G to say hello to you, and you don't have a lot of time to make decisions about that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Also, notably, you could use the book also as a referee to be the opposition to the players. So we writing it like, hey, you could be a pirate, or you could be the guy that's going after the pirates. If you want to know how to generate reasonable bad guys, here's what they do, and here's how they operate, and here's how, it's just, so it's not like a cardboard character pops up and says, I'm a pirate, shoot me, and we shoot him, and that's it. There's more to the story now. There's a plan and an operation and a system, and that's how that was kind of a secondary intent for it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Was there did any of you experience or have any memorable stories about like overcoming a roadblock, or was there anything that put up resistance during the production that you didn't expect? Or did it just came together like a plan does?
Honestly, it came together pretty well. I don't think there was a lot of. There were a couple of rewrite parts where we were like, "Hey, let's rewrite that because it didn't sound very good."
Mm-hmm. Is that what you're trying to say, Rob?
We did debate the subsector, right?
Yes.
That we actually needed to have any kind of setting information at all, and if so, where is that going to go? That was something that was not self-evident. But everything else, I mean, the fact that we wanted to grow it organically from what was already in the Traveller canon, right, between various rule sets, it gave us a lot of constraints that we could work within, right? So that stuff was, I think that was very easy for everyone to settle on. The subsector was harder.
Well, and then we didn't have any means to draw the deck plans. Like we didn't have any system that could. None of us are really great artists or anything.
Fair
but Matt from Mongoose was like, well, they said we could draw the deck plans. Just put an art direction in, no big deal. And so I was concerned that Mongoose was going to draw, Mongoose deck plans with the full color and all the art and everything. And they really came through on drawing those plans just like the ones in. Traders and gunboats, and that they really followed that model down to
they stuck to the aesthetic.
Yes, they absolutely stuck to that aesthetic, and they understood that aesthetic. It wasn't a question of that, and they clearly went back to some of that source material and looked at it and decided, okay, this is how we're going to do it. One of the new ships is designed on the same hull as the Type R, so it's the same hull as a Fat Trader. And if you think about it, there's really good reasons why a pirate would want their ship to be the same design as a very common standard ship, right? So you don't maybe attract attention the way like a Corsair landing would. And I tried to explain that to him and just be like, hey, so this is, the Mongoose Type R looks a little bit different than the classic Type R, and I was just kind of like, hey, just make sure you're the art people really came through on that. I'm really impressed with that.
Awesome.
I think as with this publication that I fully realized that Mongoose actually likes Traveller more than I thought they did. That Matthew Sprange, they are Traveller fans long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew stories around that, but this drove it home. Yeah.
Awesome. Before we move on to upcoming business, people can buy Book 9 Pirates right now, right? It just came out.
It's out. Yes, it's out on Drive-Thru RPG and on Mongoose's website in PDF form. The print version is going to be later, but he's assured us there will be a print version. So I think that's. I'm really looking forward to having a copy of it.
Right.
Yeah, I think he's the Mongoose site allows a pre-order of the print version, which is not an option at Drive-Thru. So if you're looking for a print edition, you'll need to go through Mongoose.
Good information. All right. Was there anything else you wanted to say about Pirates before we move along? All right. Sounds like we covered most things.
A lot of fun writing. A lot of fun putting it together.
Agreed.
Awesome. All right. Good job, guys. Now let's talk about any upcoming business. Do you have plans for additional publications of any kind?
Who's talking?
Bob, you want to talk about that?
So far Pirates has sold, and it's gotten enough interest that Mongoose has suggested we could write another book for Classic Traveller. So, and of course, I think we said yes, didn't we? Didn't we say yes?
I don't think we formally said yes, but I think we're agreeing to it now.
So maybe I need to get back to him and tell him formally.
Yeah, we're voting on it.
Actually, that's true because he wasn't aware of what our current preference is for the next book to write. Right. So I have to circle back and send him a yes and say we're going full guns on this. Would you like us to do something else instead?
Would you guys like to write more supplements, more adventures, more?
Yes to both.
Yes to both.
I think Jim had a scheme in mind.
Yeah. To address or to go back to what I think Matthew was saying, how there's very little information about Corridor in the classic or even later editions until I think the Rift project out of Mongoose actually does cover Corridor in a little more detail. But for the most part, Corridor's it's got some 10,000 foot view data on it, and of course all UWPs, but really not much in between. So my thought was, if we can get 3 or 4 books total through Mongoose, that gives us an opportunity to sort of theme them all towards Corridor in some way or other, or at least always have some Corridor information in them, because the supplement we have in mind is, I think, a little broader based than that. But it basically take the opportunity to dwell in Corridor a bit more, and try to flow from book to supplement to adventure, and maybe finish off with another book. Maybe, we'll see. And they just sort of all flow together thematically. So you're not going, well, the last book was about pirates, so the next book is about bureaucrats in capital. That seems kind of odd. So instead, the idea is to sort of flow thematically from one publication to the next. We'll see how successful we are.
All right.
And notably, there's only like 4 subsectors in Corridor that matter. So that makes it ideal for this format.
Gotcha.
The rest of it's sort of just empty. So that works out nicely.
Great. I wish you the best of luck on that. I have some silly Mayday questions I'd like to ask. If you guys have 2d6 handy, I have my table of questions of interest. All right. Let's start with Tom. We haven't heard from him in a while. Mainly because he's muted. Okay, there we go.
I have things going on in my house around
I
me
appreciate. I do appreciate it.
Disrupt the conversations as we go.
All right, Tom, give us a D66 roll.
4 and 4.
44. If you could play in any official Traveller campaign setting, like Spinward Marches, Solomon Rim, Trojan Reach, etc., which one would you choose and why?
Ooh. That's
And remember,
kind of a tough
Galaxiad
question
is official.
that's kind of tough because some of my background is in places that are not officially published, so that's kind of fun. But I do like the GURPS Traveller Solomani Rim of Fire.
Oh, yeah.
That's a fun place to go. They were pushing on that one to have the rim sort of go up in flames. I think as they were doing their history stuff, and that unfortunately that ended up stopping from there. But that would be a fun place to go have some adventures.
All right, cool. All right, Jim, let's do you next.
All right. Oh, that a 25.
25. Would you rather be a free trader or part of a mega corporation like Link Standard Products?
Ooh. Well, so I'm an old Andre Norton reader, so free trader automatically has a fair amount of attraction.
Yeah.
That said, having a extensive support network behind you is also
Very attractive.
very attractive. Yes, I think I would probably end up, were I a little younger, going the free trader route personally.
Okay. All right, you're the master of your own destiny. All right, let's try Rob next.
Okay. I got a 2 and a 6.
26. You find an ancient artifact on a forgotten world. Do you sell it, use it, or hide it?
Oh my gosh. I'm going to push the button, man. Use it. Use it.
Use
Oh,
it.
yeah. What does this button do? Let's find out. Oh, yeah.
All right. Your turn, Matthew.
Boy, that was an easy one. I got 45.
45. What's your favorite Traveller house rule or homebrew mechanic?
Ooh. Well, the truth of the matter is I have so many. Definitely my house rule my house rule for Traveller is that I run the combat somewhere between Mega Traveller and Traveller. It's got a combination of both. They have the Traveller combat is very predictable, I guess you could say, right? Because everything's a lot easier to predict. The armor's a little bit insufficient. There's a few little details of the combat system I provide. And then Mega Traveller is not really super playable as published. No offense meant to DGP.
I'm taken.
But it is. Thanks for representing, Rob.
Yeah.
But I think that it needs a little bit more. So I would put them. I put them both together, and I run a combo version of that. So I would say that's like one giant house rule is that combat doesn't work anything like the book says because it's a combination of two different systems.
That's clever. We should propose to Mongoose to fix Mega Traveler's combat system.
Well, I mean, that's when we get on to writing Mega Traveler books for Mongoose, which I'm sure isn't going to be until next year.
Six
Okay.
Mega Traveler. That's
There's a lot.
that's a tall
One
order.
piece at a time.
Yeah.
Well, you know what?
All right.
One thing though would be very, very doable would be to incorporate all of Don McKinney's errata into the Mega Traveler corpus and make the
Doable.
books usable as written.
Do a
That's
clean edition.
yeah.
Clean it up.
I believe
yeah.
Don passed before he found all the Mega Traveler errata, but there's what he found. The majority of it could be neatly incorporated.
Yeah,
All right.
that's true.
All right. How about one more round of random question? And then we'll wrap this up. All right. Let's go. Let's start with Tom again.
I will go with 14.
14. If you could visit any planet in the Traveller universe, where would you go first?
Ooh, there's an interesting question.
That is interesting.
Because there's a lot.
The problem is I know of all of them are sort of floating through my head because I've gone through the Spinward Marches setups like 5 or 6 times at this point, writing up all the world details and trying to okay, now I've got to pull these apart and see which one's really, really interesting to do with.
Maybe there's one that caught your eye when you were younger, though. Right?
Yeah, I know.
Or maybe there's
Mylanor
aspects.
is the fun one, I think.
What is it? Sorry, I talked over you.
So sorry, Rylanor. Go to Rylanor. That would be a good place to go.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. All right. All right. Let's find out what Jim's next question is.
51.
51. What's the biggest disaster that ever happened to your crew in a Traveller session?
Well, okay. There's got a couple potentials here. One of our crewmen once was pretty certain that he could see Cthulhu looking out of one of the windows while we were in jump.
Space madness. Or was it? Oh, that's just the void looking back at you.
Yes.
All right, good one. All right, Rob.
Okay. I got a 4 and a 6.
46. If your Traveller crew had a theme song, what would it be?
Oh, wow. If they had a theme song, maybe it'd be the theme song from the Titanic. Is that going too far? It's terrible.
All right, that's all right. My heart would go on. Is that the...
Mine would be Yakety Sax, if anybody's.
Yakety Sax.
Thanks for that one.
All right. Matt, let's have your roll.
36.
36. What's the wildest Starport bar story your Traveller characters have ever been involved in?
Wow.
Well, I know there was at least one bar gunfight. I don't know if it's a wild story other than in conversation with somebody, they shot him.
Who shot first?
I believe it was during the Traveller adventure. There's and I can't. The details of the Traveller adventure will shade me right now. There's in one of the opening pieces in Lidor on Aramis is the first adventure, and there's an Imperial Navy agent who comes to talk to them. And they go in to talk to this fella, and he meets them in a public place in a bar, and he's talking to them about he has an agenda that's complicated as part of the story, but he's a contact for later in the adventure, and somebody in the party got a wrong idea about him right away. That thought this is an ambush. This one guy is going to ambush the four of us in a bar, and just drew down on him. Just pulled out a pistol, and pistols are actually illegal on Aramis, and so he had been smuggling a pistol along with him, and then the guy just put up his hands and said, "Hey, I don't want any trouble," and tried to make his way out the door. And they said, "Well, we can't let him leave because he saw you had the pistol." So another party member pulled out a shotgun and killed him. So this is Adventure 1, Day 1. Meet the characters in a bar. Let's have a conversation with this guy who's going to be a contact later, and they just blew him away in
now they're
in a public place in the city.
Nice.
For no reason other than well, he must be up to something. Just a chain of events.
Edition of Murder Hobos in Space.
Right,
Oh my
right.
God.
And so they ended up running out the door, and if you remember the original adventure, there's no vehicles. There's just like a slide walk that carries people around, and it's an underground city that's not very big, and so they're they're carrying guns and running down this. So they all got arrested in the first hour of the adventure.
Really?
They didn't even get to the part where they meet the Vargur and introduce the other player character who was waiting to get introduced. They didn't get that far. They were in jail before then. I think that was the end of the campaign too. I don't think we picked up after that. They went to prison. I would presume for life. I don't really think there was a way
They're
out of
still
that.
there today.
I think they're still in jail.
So, all right. So if I'll put contact information in the description to the video, but are there ways that people can contact you guys, or are you willing to let people contact you? And if so, how so? I guess we'll start with Tom.
Most of my stuff is I'm on Citizens of the Imperium under my username TJonesLO. I hang out there as an admin, and I'm on the Traveller Wiki with the same username, and then I'm on Discord. But that's the limit of my social media information.
All right. And Rob, how about you?
Yeah, I'm most commonly, if you wanted to reach me or find me, that would be on the Discord channels, either your Traveller Discord channel or the Traveller Wiki Discord channel.
All right, cool.
And likely, I'm on Cody as well, but I typically don't go up there any given week.
Okay, Jim.
I'm on both Citizens and over at the Mongoose forums. Not super frequently, depends on the week. And I'm, on Facebook. It's, that usually making a nuisance of myself.
Do you use do you have a handle on the at Cody or Mongoose? Where people could contact you?
I do. I have been an unfortunate racial slur for many, many years now. Mm-hmm. The handle I've been going by since the mid '90s is Gypsy Comet.
Okay.
And I am in the process of sort of backing off of that handle just because of its of the implications, or I guess the issues with such names. Mm-hmm. But for the time being, that's still how you'll find me on Citizens. I may be changing that handle on the Mongoose boards here before too long, but I'm still pretty recognizable.
Okay. All right, cool. What about you, Matthew?
Last year we had the same conversation, and I said, there really isn't a good way to get a hold of me. And you said, well, I should create a Facebook author page. And I want you to know, Frank, I did do that. I created a Facebook author page, and I was dissatisfied with the way my name appeared, and I thought I should change that, edit it. And when I edited the name, it triggered some kind of algorithm, and I got locked out of Facebook for 2 days for attempting to, I don't know, do
Hacking
some
your own
mischief
account.
for hacking my own page. So I didn't go back to that. So I just deleted the author page and moved on and just lived my life. But I really do need to create a Facebook author page. But you can reach me on Facebook. I'm pretty easily reachable if you go into the Traveller groups. And I am on.
I think you're there under your real name, even.
Yeah, I just use my real name for everything. I'm very boring in that respect. I don't have the. And I think part of it is because I really kind of came back to Traveller, after getting involved with girls and whatever. I came back to Traveller later, and so later in life, and it was kind of past the handles period of BBSing and whatever that everybody used to be. But no, I'm under my own name on Kodi and on where I'm more of a lurker than a participant. And then kind of the same on Discord. I'm a lurker, not a participant, but you can find me in the Traveller forums there, and I'm a participant in the wiki still. So I don't think you can send me a message. I think you could technically send me a message in the wiki. Probably not the best way to get a hold of me though.
Okay.
Other than that, I'm pretty easy to find though on Facebook or can be messaged on Discord.
All right. Okay. Well, I've been talking to the co-authors of the new classic Traveller expansion, Book 9 Pirates, Matthew Kerwin, Jim Kundert, Rob Eaglestone, and Tom Jones Lowe. Thank you all for joining me, and thank you for your contributions to the world of Traveller. It's much appreciated by the folks who enjoy the game. So thank you all. Thank you for your support of this event, and I wish you all the very best. And thank you, dear listener, for joining us. And until next time, happy traveling. Don't fly solo through the galaxy. Click like to join our alliance. Subscribe for your crew pass, and enable notifications to never miss an encounter. This journey is fueled by my patrons. Thank you, patrons. Feel the thrill of discovery. Become a patron and join the adventure.